And live from our studios here, you're watching the polls on the JoyNews channel, DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Coming up this afternoon on the polls, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta faces more pushback as 98 NPP members of Parliament serve notice to boycott the next budget presentation if the Finance Minister is not dismissed from office immediately. Meanwhile, founding member of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Nyao Tamaklo, suspects that Ken Ofori-Atta may be covering up for President Akufo-Addo.
When a person is in one position and the populace say, we've had enough with you, go away, and still he wants to be there, now, the simple thing that should come to the mind of any ordinary person, that he's sitting on the rod.
Well, there's more from the statement later here on the polls. And the mad rush for subsidized foodstuff as the Ministry of Agriculture moves the planting for food and jobs market to Makola here in the Greater Accra region. On your screens now are excerpts of what transpired earlier today. We'll get you the latest from the Makola market, where our reporters will be getting us the very latest from there, and the issues regarding to legal education reform. The National Law Students Association is this afternoon outraged by what it says is yet another mass failure looming at the just ended law school entrance examination. The group says criteria for admission into the law school should be more transparent. We'll assess their claims right here on the polls. The polls, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're also streaming live on all of our social media platforms. It's at JoyNews on TV and also on YouTube. Feel free to be a part of the show. JoyNews is independent, fearless, and credible. Thanks for choosing us. And this afternoon, founding member of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Nyao Tamaklo, says he suspects President Akufo-Addo's hesitation to fire Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is simply because he's covering up the mess created by his administration. Ken appeared in Parliament yesterday when hearings started before an 8-member ad hoc committee set up by the Speaker of Parliament over calls for a vote of censure on the Finance Minister. Here's a wrap of how events actually unfolded yesterday.
A hearing full of heated arguments and forceful presentations. The minority set out to brand Ken Ofori-Atta as the minister who must not continue in his current role as the finance minister. Counsel for the finance minister, Gabi Asari-Ocherdakun, objected to the manner in which the minority were handling their evidence.
And it would not be fair to the Minister of Finance to be ambushed and right here, without any preparation, to start answering questions. The documents are fine, but before we even be able to look into the documents, we want the charges to be complete with the particulars. That's all we're asking.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu described the minister as incompetent, the sole reason for country's current economic predicament.
2017, $1 was to 4.2 Ghana cedis. Today, $1 is 15 Ghana cedis. That has meaning for businesses in Ghana. The cost of doing business is unacceptably high for businesses. The pharmaceutical industry is complaining because it affects their imports and they are made to pay more. The depreciation of the cedi has affected even Makola women who cannot trade effectively.
Dr. Kisela Tufosin said the minister had breached the fiscal responsibility law and has also misreported data to Parliament.
So if you breach it by 1 percentage point, then obviously the vote of censure may trigger. What we have seen is that over the years, even though the minister responsible for finance has been presenting some economic data to Parliament, in the year 2018, Mr. Chairman, you can see it on the board, our minister responsible for finance and the government had said to Parliament that the fiscal deficit was 3.9% of GDP. In fact, in the year 2018, the reason why they said it's 3.9% of GDP was that a key expenditure worth 9.8 billion Ghana cedis was excluded from the fiscal accounting. They treated it below the line. And this has to do with the financial sector payment. The law was passed on the 28th of December 2018, and by December 31st, 2018, the minister has breached the fiscal responsibility rules already. So 3 days down the line, there was a deficit of 1.8. And that is why we are saying that the trend for the censorship motion moved in the year 2018. In fact, if we were to go by it, somebody could have brought the motion to censure the minister in the year 2018 or 2019 because he breached the rules. And to my surprise, these are rules that were set by the minister himself when this bill, he brought the bill to Parliament for a reason. The reason is to ensure fiscal sustainability and debt sustainability. If you breach these rules, it has long-term repercussions on the Ghanaian economy. And today, we are seeing what is happening. So, Chairman, I tender this one to in evidence. There
was an intense back and forth between Gabi Asare-Ochiridakun, who is lawyer for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, and North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who is a member of the 8-member ad hoc committee.
Mr. Chairman, we object to this strongly. If he can hold a press conference to deal with those matters, but I think that we are here for a specific reason. Grounds have been stated. Let's stick to that. You know, we are not here for it's not a political platform to make some political pronouncements. These are serious allegations. Please,
he will not teach me how to do my work in Parliament.
No,
this is Parliament. You won't teach me how to do my work.
Let me finish.
No, he can't come here and throw his weight about. He can't teach me how to do my work. I take strong exception that I should go and hold a press conference. Please.
I'm only 78 kilos.
Please.
I'm not going to throw it around.
Please. I won't accept that.
Yes.
And you are not the chair. You don't tell members of Parliament what to do.
That's fine. So, I mean, we appreciate the point.
I will do my work. I'm not going to hold a press conference. You will not teach me how to do my work.
And there's more actually unfolding on this, as 98 new Patriotic Party members of Parliament have actually resolved to boycott the budget presentation and all finance ministry related businesses should the president refuse to sack the finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta immediately. This new number is actually an increase from the previous 80 NPP MPs who had earlier demanded the removal of the finance minister. Well, we can listen to Member of Parliament for Asante Akim North, Andy Piakubi, who doubles as spokesperson of this group of NPP MPs calling for the dismissal of Ken Ofori-Atta.
Okay. We've gone back to sack him now, and therefore we expect that some action be taken in respect of relieving him of his position. We have also told the president that if he is not relieved of his position, we shall not cooperate or work with him or participate in anything that he brings to the Parliament. And that position is where we are right now.
So that last bit, when you say anything that he brings, that is anything that is brought in the name of the executive president? Under the hand of the finance minister. We will not participate. Okay. Because as far as we are concerned, we are not going to do business with him. And if we are not going to do business with him, he does not participate in any process from the presidency to the House. We will not participate in deliberations on it. Okay. I asked this to get clarity. So if another minister comes to the floor, say education minister, energy minister, although they are coming on the authority of the president, you will hear them, you will do business with them.
We will so do, because we are not saying that we will do president business, but we will not do president business through Mr. Ofori-Atta. So if anybody else comes with president business to do, we will participate.
And that's the latest on what's likely to happen if Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is not dismissed immediately. It's part of the demands by now 98, previously 80 NPP MPs making that demand. So what's the implication for the governance process. And of course, as we await the budget presentation somewhere next week, let me bring in now Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, Samuel Bing, is joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. 98 NPP MPs, and of course, if you're adding that to the entire block of minority members, first of all, asking for the vote of censure, it appears that there's sufficient grounds for which the finance minister could be pushed out.
Well, on the bit about the push, and thanks for having me, Blessed. On the bit about the push, we have also heard some of these members of parliament of the majority side indicate that whereas they want the minister out, they may not necessarily ask that through the vote of censure process that is taking place. So we'll have to wait to see how that pans out. But on the bit about the budget, you know, having 98 members of the minority side say they would boycott the process if Mr. Ofori-Atta does the presentation. And we have the members of the minority side who have also made themselves very clear that, you know, Mr. Ofori-Atta has no business being finance minister. And fortunately, having a constitution that tells us about the fact that, you know, budgets are presented on the authority of His Excellency the President by a minister, we know that it doesn't have to take Mr. Ofori-Atta to present the budget, and His Excellency the President will be doing his tenure a lot of good if he heeds to some of these calls. You know, it will be quite embarrassing to have 98 of your members of parliament from your party, you know, boycott a presentation of a budget. It will take away the shine. It will take away whatever communication you wanted to put across to make the people of Ghana know that you are working towards alleviating our plight. And that will be a very needless, you know, situation for the president to put himself and his government through.
Implications would be for, first of all, the parliamentary processes. If you have 98 of the governing NPP MPs boycott, we're not too sure what the leadership of the minority side may intend to do. What's going to be the direct implication as to possibly the adoption or admission of the budget and financial policy statement, even in the House?
Recall that the members of parliament who held the press conference did not indicate that they were only going to boycott the budget presentation. They said that they would boycott whichever process that is led by Mr. Ofori-Atta, you know, and we know what challenges even budget adoption went through last year, you know, when Mr. Ofori-Atta had the blessing of his entire party caucus in parliament. So it will be needless, like I said from the very beginning, for us to even get there in insisting that Mr. Ofori-Atta must be the one, you know, doing the presentation. Recall that in 2021, when this government took office for the second term, and there were challenges with Mr. Ofori-Atta's, you know, health and his vetting and all of that. There were arrangements that still allowed the finance ministry to move on, you know, and so again, I really would be very surprised and perhaps wonder what kind of advice His Excellency the President gets from his advisors if he does not heed these calls, which are already in the open. You know, it would have been a different case if these people were talking about it in private, you know, murmuring about it on the corridors of parliament. But they've been bold. They've come out. They said, no, we don't want him presenting. Please, Mr. President would have to save us that particular trouble.
How about the issue of prejudice? Of course, the Speaker of Parliament says we need to give a fair hearing to the Finance Minister himself. That parliamentary process is currently underway. Barely a day ago, we know that on Friday, the Finance Minister says he will be before the 8-member ad hoc committee just to present his side of the story. Why can't we, of course, first of all, hear from the Finance Minister, and then these 98 NPP MPs could make their decision? Don't you feel that they're setting double standards here?
Well, recall that the financial policy of government, or the budget that is presented in Parliament, is a whole process. It's not a day's event. So the budget presentation day is not, you know, a conclusion of all of the issues around the process. There is the pre-presentation phase, which has been going on for a while, where the whole document gets developed, where the economic policies of government and all of that gets put in place. Certainly, he has been a part of the entire process. And I am saying that if it would take him not being the one to stand in at the table of Parliament, to make that reading, that ceremonial presentation, which really does not count for much. And forgive me for using does not count for much, but I mean it in the context of the discussion, because the presentation, the development of the document and all of that is where the crux of the matter is. If having that would actually save the government the embarrassment, would save Ghanaians the challenge of not having a budget completed by the time in which it needs to be completed, then I think that it's only wise that, that will be heeded. Remember that there are times when ministers of state will have to answer questions on the floor of Parliament, will have to address Parliament on one matter or the other. Sometimes they send their deputies. Sometimes the other colleague ministers on the same level present for them. And Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has done this many, many, many times. I think that His Excellency the President, who has the onus to present the budget to Parliament, but a minister does that upon his authority, would respectfully give that particular authority to somebody else so that we are safe.
Integrity of the 98 NPP MPs is being questioned at this point. First of all, when this whole campaign started, the push to get the finance minister out of office, we saw these 80 previously, 80 now 98, accept the position of the leadership. At least it was signed by the majority leader himself, indicating that they've decided to tone down, accept the president's proposition that after the budget presentation, we can't then get into the conversation as to whether or not the finance minister should leave office. So if you indeed agreed in principle at the time that the meeting happened between the MPs and the president, why come out now and change your mind?
Recall that the outcome of that particular meeting was only reported to us in that statement issued by the majority leader. It was a one-pager, I think. It did not have the full details. And remember that it is also possible, and it can be true, that the members of Parliament agreed that, yes, Mr. Ofori-Atta should continue to lead the IMF process. He shouldn't be fired as Minister for Finance for now, but they are still holding on to their position that he should not be the one presenting the budget in Parliament and leading the process. These two can happen at the same time. And I think we must not lose sight of that. So if that really was their position right from the very beginning, then I really do not see any integrity issues here.
With your expectations for Friday, the finance minister says, well, I'm ready to present my side of the story. Day one has been hectic, full of course, the usual banter. And then we see the infiltration of partisanship on that unique co-chaired 8 ad hoc committee. What's your expectation ahead of Friday?
Well, day one was a grilling 6-hour, of course, there was a 1 hour or so break in between, but the entire period that they actually sat was a little over 6 hours. That's a lot of time invested into that particular conversation. And I think that the members of Parliament, the 8 of them, I think there are 8 of them who make up the committee, will not want all of their efforts to come to naught in allowing anything to derail the process. Yes, you describe the co-chairing situation as a very unique one, and obviously that certainly sets the committee up for some challenges here and there. I think that's maybe one of the things they also need to consider for Friday, is that they need to speak in conclave to let their co-chair, Mr. K.T. Hammond, the honorable member for Adansia Sokwa, to know that this is live on television. Sometimes the optics, but many times the optics matter, especially when it's around the time when Ghanaians are struggling, Ghanaians are angry.
K.T. Hammond is not behaving enough. That's your view.
Well, he could have done much, much better, as a co-chair. And of course, the verdict is out there. The people of Ghana have taken to many, many platforms to criticize, how he discharged himself. If we do not take care, that little bit of his attitude and his approach will take away the shine from 6 hours of hard work that were done by the members of Parliament on that particular day. And that is what I think the committee must guard against on Friday and beyond. And beyond Friday, it is my expectation also that this whole issue of having parliamentary committees have conversations, have sit-ins, the sit-ins are telecast, but yet they fail to agree on a final report, and there are issues here and there marring the whole presentation of their report, which takes away the shine from the entire work that they have done. It will not be the case for this particular committee. I'm hoping,
all right,
and I really hope they are able to prove me, right in this instance.
Indeed, that's what we're looking up to. But I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on the Pulse, Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, Sami Obing. Well, if you're wondering why Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is still at post, he has a guess for you. It's coming through from Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. He says that the president's cousin is, quote, sitting on the rot.
Statement that was made by Ofori-Atta that we are not going back to the IMF.
We are a proud people.
We are a proud people. And it's been seen clearly that we have gone back to the IMF. If I were Ofori-Atta, I would have resigned immediately. Now you ask yourself, why is it still there?
Why do you think?
What do I think?
Why do you think he's still there?
Look, when a person is in position, I made mention of dictatorship. When a person is in position and the populace say, we've had enough with you, go away, and still he wants to be there, the simple thing that will come to the mind of any ordinary person, that he's sitting on the rot. When he's not there, then we see how massive that rot is.
You're suggesting Ken Ofori-Atta is covering up
absolutely.
For some people. For whom?
You're asking me that? Who is the appointing authority in this country?
Mr. President?
Yeah, and has the president approved of his removal? Huh? The president should have approved of his removal. But he himself should have asked him to go away. Here we have a situation where even an ordinary person in the street says Ofori-Atta must leave. Now, what sort of image is he given now to the world economist?
Right.
If he goes back to the IMF to negotiate, would they even respect us and respect the nation? I doubt. I'm not an economist, but I doubt.
So he's not even fit to
absolutely, but he should say that
process. Right.
himself. He should say that himself. I mean, this is worrying. This is very, very worrying. And what really disturbs me is that other members, well, right now we are told that the whole majority agrees that he should go.
Right.
If I understood exactly what they said.
Yes.
So what prevents them from taking or using the parliamentary process to get him out of office if he's not resigning? And what prevents the president from writing him that he should leave office? So these are the questions.
And definitely we'll be monitoring developments in Parliament and bring you some updates as and when we have them. But for now, there's a unique situation at the Makula market. There's mad rush for some subsidized food items at the market as the Ministry of Food and Agriculture storms the area today with what it calls the Plantain for Food and Jobs market. Of course, on your screens now are excerpts of what transpired earlier today. In the wake of escalating prices of food stuff on the market, government believes that they need to bridge the gap of transportation cost, which actually remains a major driver of inflation of food prices. And they believe that by intervening, this could see a slump in the food prices in the coming days. Earlier today, scores of market women and members of the general public were seen pouring out their numbers, as you can see on the screens right now, in demand of that PFJ produce. Well, my colleague Mamiesi Nyamiche Thompson is live at the Makula market with more for us. Mamiesi, what can you report? And unfortunately, it appears we're having some challenges hearing Mamiesi Thompson, who's live there for us. But I want to bring in now Isa Al-Hassan Ridwan, Press Secretary to the Minister for Agriculture and Food as well. Thank you, Isa Al-Hassan, for joining us here on the polls. First of all, what we see on our screens right now is obviously an indication that people would want to buy food items once the prices are down. But are you able to confirm if you'd be able to sustain this as a ministry? Isa Al-Hassan, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if you'd be able to sustain the exercise that you're running now, because on the screens we can see scores of market women and lots of people pouring out just to buy the plantain that we're seeing on the screens. And beyond that, there is the question as to whether or not you'll be able to match up the demand. So you don't end up creating another situation of inflation, even on the produce that you're trying to reduce the prices for. Isa Al-Hassan, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if you'll be able to sustain this. It appears we're having some challenges there, but of course the minority in Parliament has been tearing into the government's Plentiful Food and Jobs market introduced by the Agric Ministry. The ministry of course, cuts food from the rural area, transports them to Accra to sell at a cheaper price. But speaking to JoyNews, minority spokesperson for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, claimed that government has misdiagnosed the cause of the rising food prices.
Now, the rising food prices is not attributed to shortage in the market. It is attributable to rising cost of production. But I followed what was happening in the PFJ market at the ministry. And the woman complained that the prices are the same. They said the value is the same. They don't see any significant difference in the prices of food in the market and that of the PFJ market. So it means that the minister got it wrong. If the price had come down, they would have admitted that, yes, the price has come down because of the market. Now they are saying that the value is the same. And I heard one woman even saying that what she bought from the market was even cheaper than what is buying at the PFJ market. So that is the difference.
Well, so that's the position of the minority on this. Let's bring in Isa Al-Hassan. Earlier, we're having some challenges to your connection. I was just asking how sustainable this approach will be. The fact that you are carting food from rural community into urban areas such as Accra. Isa Al-Hassan, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if you feel this is a sustainable approach.
Thanks for having me, my brother. I'm sorry there was some distractions on the network. So yes, we answer the question of sustainability by indicating to Ghanaians that, look, we are actually not in normal times, as the president has always said. And so the question about sustainability is not what we want to address right now. What we are trying to do right now is that, look, we went to the various regions across the country and we found out that food is so cheap and so much available in the local communities, to the extent that some of them are virtually giving it out for free. So the question is, considering the current economic challenges facing Ghanaians and the fact that we have civil and local government workers who live in the morning from their homes to the office and get to the house around sometime 9, 10 p.m., what can we do as a ministry, considering the fact that there's so much food available in the local communities, to help sustain them in the course of this, in the midst of this economic hardship? So our view, our vision is to look. We want to first make sure that these things are available to our local staff and the civil servant, and also show to Ghanaians that indeed food can be a bit moderately affordable if we can do away with the usual profiteering that some of the middlemen and market women are known of, because we know that we are not normal as I
Hassan,
said. So
Isa Al-Hassan, I guess at this point it's not fair to say this is a case of profiteering. We've heard from the market women. They've complained on countless occasions about how the increasing fuel prices is affecting transport. That's a major factor for inflation. So why say that the market women are engaged in profiteering? Isa Hassan, can you hear me?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm getting some distractions.
Yes. So
what
I'm just asking why you're accusing the market women of engaging in profiteering.
No, we are not. We are not accusing any market women. Let's be very clear about that. What we are saying is that what the market women are going through, we are so much aware about the fuel prices and then the transportation and all that. We are so much aware of, very much aware of that. But what we are saying is that the prices that we are giving here, we have also factored all those things into consideration. Look, my brother, if you are to cut food from, let's say, Sevi to Accra, you should have gone through about 3 stages, middlemen. And we know that in every stage of the marketing value chain, everyone wants to add their profit margin onto it. So what we have done as a ministry is that, look, we want to cut the food straight from the production side with a base price and bring them to the market centers for local government staff and other people to also enjoy. We don't want to be sound to be accusing. No. What we are saying is that yes, their challenges are ongoing, but if we have to be moderate in our prices, we all know what happened a few weeks ago when cooking oil was going as high as 1,002. Now it has come back to 550. What may have accounted for that? So these are the issues that we are talking about. We are not accusing any market men of anything.
Okay. So let's get a sense out of this. Who's responsible for the transportation and where's the source, or what's the source of funding for the transportation arrangement?
So let's set this clear.
Yeah.
The food, we are saying that even without this ministry involvement, we have people that cut food from the local, production side to the market centers. These individual businessmen are what minister was able to negotiate with them and said that, look, let's cut away all the various middlemen and get to the base. So when we got to the base, we saw a lot of farmers who were even ready to, as it were, bring the produce straight away to the market center, to the big cities to sell. Take for instance, Agogo plantain market. There are some women who buy these plantain, who cut these plantain from their farms and then sell them to people who bring them to Accra. So we met this woman and said that, madam, we want to get this food very much affordable to our people. So what can you do to help us? She agreed to cut the food straight from Agogo to Accra, and that is one of the benefits that we are paying.
I guess I'll put my question across again. I'm asking about the transport arrangement. Who's responsible for funding the transport? Because if I'm a businessman and I'm transporting this produce, ideally from such a long distance, at a time when fuel prices are up, you don't expect me to do that for the same price that you're selling on the market.
No, so now we all admit that our price here is cheaper compared to the OP market.
Precisely.
Right? Exactly. So then, before I joined your Zoom, we had Honorable Eric Opoku making argument that people say that it's the same. So then that argument is now defeated. We want to make sure that argument is not defeated.
No, I get the point. But then why I'm asking the question is because the feeling is you're creating another problem on the side because you're now using taxpayers' money to transport food to
taxpayers' money. What I'm saying is that,
so how then are you funding the transport? How then are you funding the transport?
I'm saying is that,
yeah.
Listen, they say that apart from the transportation, when they get to the police barrier and all that, they are charged certain monies. That has been taken out, okay? And then we are, like I indicated, some of the market middlemen that are involved in cutting plantain, for instance, to Accra, have been taken out. And so all those profit margins that were supposed to have been added to the ultimate pricing for the ultimate consumer have been taken out. And that's how come our prices are cheaper.
It's really interesting that you're talking about police corruption. Isa, kindly hold on for...
No, I never mentioned police corruption.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that when they get to the border towns, okay, when they get to the police barrier, they have certain, they go through certain...
and they end up paying monies they're not supposed to pay. Okay. Isa...
It's coming from them,
okay.
Not us.
Right. Isa, I'm not challenging, I'm actually not challenging your position on this, because obviously you've engaged the traders, so you have an idea of what's happening.
But you're interested in what you're interested in what the ministry is putting through.
Yes, precisely. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in detail. I just want you to hold on for us briefly. Let's also hear from some of the market women. My colleague Mamiesi Thompson is also there right now at the Makola market, engaging the market women on how this is, of course, panning out there. So, Mamiesi, if you can hear us, just give us a sense of what's happening, and then we'll hear from Isa Al-Hassan on what the way forward is.
All right, so Blessed, I'm currently at Makola, just opposite or right by the Makola fire station, and that was where, or that particular spot was where the Ministry of Agric brought in a truck of plantains to sell earlier this morning to the public here. I'm told that as early as 4 a.m. there was a truck full of plantain here, but it started selling at about 8 a.m. Before midday, the whole truck of plantains had finished. There were so many people here rushing for the plantains because a bunch of plantains was selling for 10 cedis, as low as 10 cedis. And I mean, that amount or that price for a bunch of plantain, you can't get anywhere in the market. In fact, I spoke to a couple of plantain sellers who were telling me that they sell the bunch for 40 cedis, but then they have to distribute it into smaller portions for 10 cedis, sometimes 5 cedis for those who cannot afford the bunch. And so that is the current situation here. As I speak to you now, everything is out. People have bought, and I'm standing here. I have an example of a bunch that went for 10 cedis. This bunch, a woman bought it where I'm standing. She bought this for 10 cedis. It's actually 2 of this for 10 cedis from the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, what they are asking for right now is rice and oil. But before I came here, I went to the ministry's office, and I realized they were selling rice, local rice. So there were 2 trucks full of rice at the ministry's office selling to people. I saw people at the people from the Kayayes. I also saw people from offices coming in. People took their breaks from the office to come and buy rice. And a bag of rice, Blessed, was going for at most 350 cedis. It actually depends on which one you're buying, either long grain or broken rice. The broken rice was going for as less as about 300 cedis. And so that is how much the Ministry of Agriculture is selling produce to the public, as opposed to how much the market women are selling it for. And so the 5 kilo rice, when I asked them, was going for about 66 cedis for the long grain and 36 cedis for the broken grain rice. But when you come to the market and you ask for that same pack of rice, some are telling me it's about 150 cedis. So you realize that there's discrepancies in the pricing system here. And so that is the current stuff I'm picking up from the Ministry of Agriculture and the market. Blessed.
That's my colleague Mamiesi Thompson with the latest from Makola Market. Mad rush indeed for all of the food items you've seen on display, largely plantain. And Isa, I want to bring you back in because there's the question as to what you intend to do, for instance, with cereals and grains. You're focusing for now, I guess, on plantain. You say that that's part of the pilot system you're running. But going forward, what plans do you have for rolling out a bigger picture? Yeah, so Isa, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about the other food items? Because for now you're focusing on plantain. The question about, for instance, cereals and grains. What do you intend to do about that one? It appears that we've lost Isa Al-Hassan, Press Secretary to the Minister for Food and Agriculture. We'll definitely reconnect with him shortly. There's more from the minority on this because they are blaming the current food prices, which have led to record high inflation, on government cutting subsidies on what they believe is a monumental failure of the Planting for Food and Jobs program. Just listen to Eric Opoku once more.
Now, the rising food prices is not attributed. The subsidy on the fertilizer is being reduced now. It was 50%. The farmer was to pay 50%, while government pays 50%. Today, the farmer pays 85%, and government pays 15%. So it's like government has reduced substantially the amount of subsidy that was placed on the fertilizer for our farmers. And all over the world, agriculture is heavily subsidized. Unfortunately, at a time when the cost of inputs, the cost of agricultural inputs is going up, government is cutting down on subsidies on fertilizer that is supplied to the farmers. So this is the time government ought to have increased fertilizer subsidies as a means of bringing down cost of production. But the reality is that the subsidy on the fertilizer is being reduced now. The program was to decrease importation of rice by 49%. It was to decrease importation of maize by 30%. In fact, the intention of the program was to increase production of cereals and vegetables so that Ghana can cut down on our imports. Unfortunately, rice import is on the rise. Maize import is on the rise. So if a program fails to achieve its targets, would you describe that program as being successful? Certainly no. It has been a monumental failure, to the extent that before the introduction of the program, we were spending around 1.2 billion to import food. Now we are doing 2.4 billion.
Meanwhile, the minority is asking the president to dismiss the Minister for Agri, Dr. Ofori-Atta, who the president has described as one of the excellent and most performing ministers.
From those of us who understand the sector and have been monitoring the activities of the minister and the implementation of the policies that chorus across the country, you see clearly that the minister has not performed. In fact, I have always challenged the figures they churn out in respect of their produce. When they say we have produced this quantity of rice, I do challenge some of these things. Actually, I think that the Agri Minister has not performed at all. In fact, he engages in agricultural propaganda instead of working on the field to deliver the results. Because if at the time you assume office, our food import bill was around 1.2 billion, and today we are doing 2.4 billion, and you claim that you have done so much, you have produced enough food, then I don't know where you are coming from. Do you know that the poultry sector is almost collapsed? I don't know whether you have been following that sector. A time came, they had to sell their bears just for lack of maize. Meanwhile, Planting for Food and Jobs was in operation. You recall that even in 2018, for the first time in the history of this country, Ghana had to go to ECOWAS food strategic stocks to borrow rice and maize. Have you ever heard that Ghana, in spite of our resources, in spite of the agricultural potential that we have, will go and then borrow rice and maize? We did it in 2018.
So you must go.
That was the time the minister said, under planting for food and jobs, we have produced maize in abundance, we have produced rice in abundance. Yet we went and pleaded with ECOWAS to support us with some greens to enable us to run the school feeding program. And so when it comes to performance, I think that the minister has been a dismal failure.
Isa Hassan is back on with us. And Isa, I was just, of course, on the back of the report we're receiving from Makola, asking you what plans you have for instance, cereals and grains, because for now, all we see is that plantain is on the market. But obviously, people need the cereals, people need maize, rice, and the others.
Yes.
So what plans do you have for that?
Yes, there are plans. My brother, what we have to appreciate is the fact that all the crops under the planting for food and jobs, we've recorded a lot of surpluses. What we are about to tackle is the post-harvest aspect of it. And that is why currently the minister is dealing with a legislation that will permanently solve this problem. And that is the Grains Development Authority. The Grains Development Authority, once the bill is passed into law, will become the permanent solution to the issue of grains. And the authority, just like we have been able to establish the Tree Cross Development Authority, will now have the power to go to the market and borrow on their own balance sheet and be able to raise enough money to buy these grains and stock them at our warehouses. So for now, that is the major policy that the minister is pursuing right now. So we are expecting that by the rise of the current parliament, we should be able to pass the Grains Development Authority bill and into law, and then that will permanently solve the issue of grains. So once that is available, now we will have an authority that will go to the market and be able to purchase the food, the grain from the farm source and keep them as a buffer for emergency use.
For instance, I'm looking at the timeline you're working with by the time Parliament rises, but you do agree that if it comes to the figures and the statistics on consumption, cereals and grains top them. Of course, when it comes to rice, maize, millet, I mean, these are staples that we rely on so much. So you agree that just selling out plantain may not solve the entire problem on the market?
No, but we have grains, we have rice. We are selling rice right now.
Okay.
Nobody can tell me right now that we don't have grains on the market. Go to Techiman and see. People are asking for buyers. 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we were in Techiman, and we saw some of your colleagues were with us on the tour, and we saw what the people were saying. You see, the issue about transportation that has resulted in high prices cannot be the making of the ministry. When we talk about production and availability of these food items, we have it in an abundance. The issue about transportation and which has risen the cost of these food items is a topic we can have on another time. And I'm very sure that the president and the government is doing something about it. But right now, as we are talking right now, you have your maize, you have your rice. In fact, we are selling several bags of rice here at the ministry at cheaper cost. I'm not too sure whether anybody has said they cannot get maize to buy. Those cereals are very much available and on the market. What I did say was that we need to tackle the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is that government should be able to have the financial muscle to meet the competitive market and be able to buy these stocks available at the warehouses, so that in case there's an emergency, we are able to send them across to the people that need them.
Beyond Accra, what's the plan?
Yeah, that we have indicated. We started this program at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Today, you have seen that we went to Makola Market. Tomorrow, we are going to Circle. And we have continuously been monitoring the development in other regions. Next week or two, we'll be hitting Ashanti region. And also, once we are done with Ashanti region, we also look at other regions. In fact, Minister has sent a circular to all the regional directors to monitor the food production in their various regions to see that any food that is available so that we can make our arrangements and bring them to the regional capitals so that people can also enjoy. So we will not be limiting ourselves to Accra alone. We started with the Mofa premises. We moved to Makola today. Tomorrow we are at Circle. And next week or two, we are anticipating that we'll be in Ashanti Region.
And as you can see on the screens right now, a lot of clamor, mad rush, if you want to call it, for the produce that you're selling. How do you intend to at least bring some level of sanity? It tells you that, of course, what you have may be in short supply, a reason for which you have lots and lots of people coming in for this produce that you're selling.
Not exactly. When you come to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, there's order and there's structures in place that deals with the sale and the buying and selling of these items. You have a desk that has been set by our enumerators who are there issuing receipts. But of course, when we got to Makola, we realized, this is a typical local market that you experience every time. This is no different from what happens on the ordinary market when the trucks come early in the morning. And that's how come you see this happening. But that is not what happens at the premises of Agric Ministry. Some of your colleagues were here for the past 3 days, and they saw that orderliness involved in the system.
Yeah, I get that. I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question because of what we're seeing on the screens right now. And of course, you are indicating to me that you may be moving from Makola, for instance, to Circle. That's another highly densely populated area. You're going to face the crowd again. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yes. So this morning, when we encountered these challenges, we placed a call to the security agents. Police came around and maintained order, and then to contact again tomorrow. The police have agreed to set up barricades at the area and then fend off all the people so that they will be in a queue. So there will be orderliness tomorrow as we engage the buyers.
And finally, the minority feels that what's happening now is a vote of no confidence on your boss, the Minister for Agric. In fact, they're calling for heads to roll. They believe that the minister should be one of them. Do you feel that they're coming from a good place? Obviously, you tell me no, but of course they say what's happening on the streets right now is testament to that fact.
I think the minority will not be the best people to pass judgment on my boss. The people that are enjoying the cheaper prices of food will be the best people to pass judgment on the performance of the Minister for Food and Agriculture. Of course, my brother, if we have not experienced abundance of food right now, I think that the minority are in a good position right now to, as it were, pass judgment on the minister. When we came to power, we saw the growth of the agriculture sector. We all saw it. It was growing at 2%. Right now, agriculture is growing at 8.4% of the GDP. So nobody can tell me that we have not done very well. Of course, we know there are room for improvement, but we know very well that we have done well, and the Minister for Food and Agriculture, through all the numerous programs that he has implemented, has really succeeded in achieving our objectives.
Anyway, I would have to leave it now for here. Of course, we'll definitely follow up, Ridwan, but we're grateful that you've been able to join us this afternoon here on The Pulse. And talking about grains, for instance, my colleague Mamiesi Thompson has been engaging some sellers at Makola Market, where, of course, the PFJ market campaign was taking to today.
We realized that the produce here is local rice, the broken local rice, which is packaged in bags. And I can see right in this truck, a truck load of local rice here at the Ministry of Agriculture. I mean, from the beginning of this week, we've seen produce like tubers of yam, plantains that have been sold at arguably cheaper prices, for the Ghanaians who have been complaining of traders increasing prices of food. So we are here today, and let me talk to this gentleman here who just bought a bag of rice. So please tell me, what's your name and what time did you get here?
I'm Godfred. Yes. I got here, I took my break time to come here and see if it was true that they were really selling here. So when I got here, I saw that they are selling the rice, which is a local rice. Yes, so I bought one bag, but I wanted a mix of it. So I took one of the long grain and 4 of the broken rice. Right. Yes.
And so how much did you get this for?
So in all, I'm paying 210.
210.
Yes.
How much would you have gotten this on the open market?
It will be around 300, 350. Right. Yes.
So you've made savings of over 100 cedis.
Yes.
Right. So where do you work and why did you decide to leave your office to come here at this time?
I work with Progress. So I just took time off. It's lunchtime, so I just rushed to come and buy and go back.
Will this change, will it change from going to the market to now coming to the Ministry of Agri to get your produce?
I think this place is small. If they can get a much bigger place so that because when you come here, parking is even an issue. Okay, so people working in the corporate institutions will be bringing their cars, unless maybe you have to park somewhere and walk and come to this place. So if they can get a much spacious place where people can easily park their cars and walk in, it will help.
So what do you make of this venture that the Ministry of Agri is taking?
It's a good initiative, and it will help people a bit to be able to save some money. We are heading towards Christmas, and if you do some of these things early, you can save money for those times and have some money for the kids.
Right.
Yes.
What's your name?
I'm Godfred.
So you heard Godfred right there. The main reason coming here instead of going to the market is getting or saving some money for his pocket, because during the Christmas season is when you need to buy more. You spend more actually, but if you're able to save during those times when most food products or the prices of food have increased, then you can understand why he is here. Well, let me get closer to the truck where I can see a queue. These people, half of them are kayayes. These come to help with those who are actually buying so that they can help them carry it. Hello, sweetheart. How are you?
Fine.
What's your name?
Maria.
What? I come to buy or you are coming to carry for somebody? Okay. Namumu fi namuba.
Every Tama station.
Would you be a chine buy and one mobile say mobile be ewa?
Ya na buy a baby suaka. Once say Jumana enyente. Omode abahan mo adum ye pa eba no menye no masuya.
Tama station we fi market na wo ho na den ohonom no nkrofo ani ho mo ton ne ma mbetimi aso.
Da be say akwa te say eyi omode ba hanom no nta ma honom obi amba obi.
Oh sir. Enti mo ba ha no time be na mo bedu ha na adwuma ne te se wa ha.
Oh say adwuma na ye nya na kakra kakra.
Sika wonya no e chen na wonya wo market ho ana
ene sika menya e chen sika ya menya de bia no
trips ahe na wa yende
o ene manya juma bebre
o sa your friend saying
from Hindu.
And of course, that's the situation across the capital here in Accra. You're with us on the Pulse on the JoyNews channel. When we get back, we'll talk about the National Association of Law Students and their concerns about a possible mass failure again, this time around in terms of entering the law school. We'll talk about that shortly. And you're welcome back. The National Association of Law Students is taking on the General Legal Council over what it says is the latest rot in the admission into the Ghana School of Law. Unofficial sources, according to the group, indicates that the number of applicants likely to take the professional course this year may be dropping owing to a mass cut-off after the entrance examination. Joining us now is Hassan Asari, President of the National Association of Law Students. Hassan, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. Let me start off by asking you about the figures. Do we know how many people may have made it into the School of Law?
Thank you for the opportunity and good afternoon.
that have made it 522 in total out of 2,654.
522, you're referring to the official figures that have been released by the IEC. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, that's correct.
And you say that this is part of the deliberate plot by some unseen hands to reduce the numbers. What's your evidence?
See, sometimes it is not always about evidence. Sometimes it's commonsensical. I wonder sometimes whether what we learn at the law school is different from the application thereof. I learned words like predictability, certainty, reasonability, but when it comes to the application thereof, it is missing. I'll give you, maybe I can answer your question in a different way. What would someone who is organizing an examination, why would the person set in its requirement to say that when you finish writing the exams, you're not going to see the mass script? What is the mindset behind it? I think a few months down the line, I was one of those who called for the boycott. And personally, I did so because I thought this exam was not going to be a fair process one. I thought it was unjustly going to deny students. It was opaque. The system was structured to fail students. It was flawed. I mean, I used all these words because, in my opinion, I'm going to write an exams. I'm not going to see my script. I'm not going to be able to request for tallying. I would not. In fact, the one that kills me more is to accept without question. Now, I'm going to write an exam. In fact, when it comes to the professional law course, and even the other people who are in there, I mean, those who come from abroad, they have the right to request for remarking because it is a human institution and mistakes are inevitable. So for you to come out with these rules, which in my opinion is deliberate, never in the history of this country has such rules been set for students to go for remarking. So why would GLC think they are above the law when it comes to some of these reasonable things?
But the fact that you've not seen the results or the figures may not necessarily prove that indeed there's something untoward happening.
So what is stopping them from allowing us to see it is the question. What is causing them to actually set this requirement as basis for writing the exams? Is it reasonable? That is the question I ask. What is the interest? What do they hope to achieve with this particular requirement that is set in place? So for me, I feel it is very deliberate. It is calculated. It was planned. I don't call it even an exam. I feel it is an arbitrary selection. That is how I called it in my post. So for me, I feel it is something that was planned to just fail students. Out of 2,654, 522 pass. Now, if we have to request for the raw score, will it actually affirm this position? If we have to request for remarking, will it affirm this position? If we have to request for the marking scheme, are you sure people will not be in doubt of all these? So why are they trying to keep it from the public?
You tell me, because you're making the claims, Hassan. You tell me, you're making the claims. You don't expect the GLC to come out of the blue to provide the figures.
No, I'm asking them. Yeah. Not you exactly.
I get it. I get it. But you must still come out with some figures. You don't have anything at hand to prove that indeed something untoward is happening.
Because what I will get proof that something happened like that of last to release the raw scores is for them to give me the right for remarking. Those rights would have what I want in it to prove that they actually had an intent before they set this thing rolling. So in my opinion, if they allow me to request, in fact, it's one of the things table. We are going to request through the RTI the raw scores. If we get the raw scores, we can be able to compare some of these things. But for me, it is predetermined.
as has always been the case. I don't know why it is so difficult for them to be transparent and speak to issues. I have always challenged them. If they think they have nothing to hide, they should allow us to go through these things. They should allow us to see the marking scheme. They should allow us to request for remarking. They should allow us to retally as they and stop this statement of accept without question.
Okay.
These are lawyers. These are luminaries. These are legal, gurus. You don't expect things like that from them. Accept without question? Really?
Okay, you may suffer a hurdle in terms of getting that RTI across, particularly when we know that there was some non-disclosure agreement that was signed between the IEC and all of the prospective students into the law school. They signed that agreement. They signed onto the agreement. So how then will you obtain that?
But by your own statement, it's easy. It's very easy. You said by the IEC and the prospective students. I am not one who signed these things. I'm not one of them. Beyond that, I can equally use you. That is to say, an outsider can actually make that request. It is good to test the law. So we will use the RTI to request for those.
Yes, I'm talking about the hurdle because they've signed a non-disclosure sort of agreement. So how then do you expect the GLC to give you the figures?
No, contracts are made between two parties. The party is the student body who wrote the exams and signed, and the GLC or the IEC. I am not part of it, but RTI does not limit outsiders from seeking information. So we would apply it as it is to seek for the raw cause. And when we are refused, we can use every channel available to actually seek redress.
And what law are you coming under to seek the raw score, particularly when you're not a party, when you have not been affected or otherwise as a result of the organization of the examination?
I don't think the RT actually makes that the basis for seeking for information. You can seek for that information to learn from it. You can seek for that information for your personal record. It could be for anything. It needn't necessarily be the case that you need to become a party to. That provision is not there. So as I've said,
so where are you actually targeting your RTI? Where are you targeting your RTI? At the GLC or at the IEC? Where exactly are you sending that to?
Well, I believe that whoever released the course will be the one to target. Or otherwise, any means that we can use, whoever we have to assess to get the RTI from, we will make that application and then we can be refused. Then we can look at what other options avail us. But the point still remains that if we got the raw score, we'll be able to compare what they are saying against what is on the scores and then make a determination. If not for the fact that the raw score of last year came out, 499 students were going to be refused admission, not because they failed, but because people thought. And this, in law, we call this precedent. It has happened before, so we believe it is still happening. And if there's something they want to do, and let me put this on record, they have decided to close down the Legon campus. So it is one of the things, it is one of the ways to actually reduce the numbers. So if you close down Legon campus, the capacity of the numbers in there would have to be spread across some other group. So we know that it's all part of the strategy. You look at the timing, the release of the results and everything. For me, I think they were doing some kind of permutations. So it still remains that the GLC has a lot of things to protect, a lot of fishy things, opaque things they are doing. And for me, as I've said, this is not an exam, this is a selection. We've seen selection last year where 10 or 20 students were taken through the back door. So I'm not surprised if this is what is still happening. I really don't care. But in the end, we want to see what the raw score is to make our analysis. But I don't believe that out of 2,654 students, 522 passed. It is not true. That has never been the case. And this is something that we need to guard against. If they think they are honest enough, then they should give us access to the raw score and every information we need so that we can prove them wrong.
Okay, I need to point out now that we don't have evidence from you, so it's fair to say that we're not able to independently verify some of your claims here on the show with regard to closing down the Legon campus and, of course, some other claims you're making now. You're on your own as you make these claims. But let's move forward and talk about reforms to legal education. The debate has been endless. It appears that there's no end in sight to this whole conversation. Why not leave it and allow the system to be as it is?
I like that question. It's very interesting. You see, the Constitution talks about the fact that we the people, and I don't want you to forget that phrase, we the people. So I am working within the context of we the people. The country is ours. It is not for individuals or a group of people. Education, you see, it is quite interesting that we want to allow free education at some point, but when it comes to the top, at some point, we want to close it. The law provides, and if you may allow me, under Article 25(8), that adequate facilities should be provided at all levels. It is a constitutional right. That's number one. Number two, it says that people have the right to establish schools. So if people have the right to establish schools, the question is, why are you stopping them? If you are supposed to provide adequate facilities at all levels, why are you not providing for law schools? You remember or you recall, when this issue of legal education came up, they took us to the law village to go and show us that they were doing something. As we speak right now, the praise is all grown because what they did then was gaslighting, as I've always said. If we move on to Section 13(2) of the Act 32, it talks about they can run legal education or they can allow other institutions to do these same things. The question I have to ask is, why do they want to hold monopoly to this legal education only? What is the problem? Why can't they allow other people to do it? For me, it is a right that I'm fighting for. Every person has the right to education. So if I am fighting for this cause, I believe that it's within the right or the premise of the law for me to request that they do the right thing. If they think they don't have the capacity, they can allow other institutions. We made many suggestions that even if you think you cannot do it, let faculties come and support and help them and find a way to structure the whole thing so that you can be like the overseer, like WAEC, so that you can monitor the examinations or be there to ensure that some of these things happen. Why do we have to look on with this? That's so much so that you don't have space and every now and then you are just trying to manipulate numbers so that it looks like all is well, but all is not well. So for me, I feel that we need to find a way to resist oppressors' rule. It needn't stand, and we'll keep fighting it. It doesn't matter with how long. Maybe they think they want to keep it up so that some of us will be frustrated, but won't stop. Legal education must be expanded, it must be open, and we don't think this monopoly should hold. That is why we've gone to the extent of making requests to the executive. We've made requests, in fact, we have made requests to parliamentarians, and the private member bill, as of the last time I checked, was at the drafting stage. Unfortunately, it's not been laid in Parliament. I still have my eyes there looking and hoping that things will change. Because I believe that when the PMP comes, all these problems will be solved once and for all. So I am not going to relent on my push to assure that the right thing is done or legal education is opened. So we are just going to push our thing.
And indeed, I see how passionate you are about this. Unfortunately, we don't have all of the time. Thank you for spending some time with us here on the Pulse. Hassan Asari, President of the National Association of Law Students. Security has been beefed up now at Kinyasi in the Certificate North District of the Ahafo region, a day after clashes emerged between the youth and duty officers stationed at Newmont Mining Limited. It left one person dead and 4 others injured. The youth, carrying various weapons, roamed the streets, burning 2 vehicles, vandalizing another, and destroying property deep into the night. Police managed to calm down nerves and are keeping close watch today to sustain peace. Erastus Azari Donko was there in our reports.
Currently, they are burning ties and expressing anger, holding implements from machetes to cutlasses and metals and other things. Now, what we are learning is that a tricycle motor was coming in from the Ahafo Mining Company end, through this end. Now, he was stopped by duty officers who are police officers stationed with the company. And he failed to stop. According to the people, he decided that, one, they are not coming in from their gold mining sites. The Abuboya was carrying thick logs for his business, and so they decided not to stop. Now, according to them, they were chased by these duty officers right from up there onto this particular place, and an altercation ensued, and the policemen started firing at them. So what you see here is blood, indicating somebody who was shot right here. There is another pool of blood up there, indicating the second area that people were shot. Medical Superintendent of the Banhart Hospital at Kenyasi, Dr. Philemon Imbila, confirmed one death and condition of 4 others who sustained injuries.
4 people rushed in around 5:30. One was brought dead. He has some wound on the left side of the chest. It was penetrative wound. And there was also wound on the medial aspect of both thighs, big enough. So a guy in his middle, let's say 20s or something of that sort. So he was really brought in dead. The other 3, they also sustained various degrees of injury. So we resuscitated them and managed them, and they are doing very well. So later, another guy was also rushed in with a history that he was also shot on the left lower arm, sustained some cuts, which we also managed to check. So currently we have 4 on admission, doing very well.
The shooting and subsequent casualties angered youth of the town who poured onto the scene in their numbers in protest. They burnt 2 vehicles and vandalized another, all property of Newmont Mining Limited and Inconson Limited, one of its contractors. This man was driving one of the burnt vehicles.
Grass in the Jugumeso, and the second one so fetch no bed, the Wiminian, a sea form. The ones my papa, a kind of grass no. Ibaku, a children or that banner, the woman, still an amateur, to that than a woman, I'm a tattoo, to be turn about Kono Fazaka so called the chame, and to one who said Guy Baku, because Unia Jano, the Wiminia.
The machete wielding youth blocked the Kenyasi and Totroso road, chanting and banging on vehicles whilst extorting monies from commuters. They invaded some residential facilities of Newmont Mining Limited, looting them in the process. The police managed to calm nerves after hours of speaking to the rampaging youth. A Kenya's #1 youth leader, Abdul Karim Yeboah, who spoke with Loud News, wanted leadership intervention to prevent an escalation of the protest.
We are demanding justice. We want to ensure that government of Ghana, headed by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, they should come to the aid of the people of Pacific North, especially Kenyase and the other communities that Newmont mine on. If government doesn't come in, we will advise ourselves.
The crowd has since dispersed, but security has been beefed up in the town to protect life and property. Reporting for JoyNews, Erastus Asaredonko, Kenyase, Asutifi North. Ofori-Atta.
Well, Newmont has been providing their side of the story. Communications and External Affairs Manager Newmont Ahafo Samuel Osei tells JoyNews that the police is working to fish out persons who fired the gun. According to him, the shooting, which led to the death of 1 person, was done beyond their operational borders. He spoke to my colleague Samuel Kojo-Brace.
We woke up yesterday morning to hear about some confrontation between the police and some community members, leading to some shooting incident which killed 1 person, and then 4 others were subsequently, injured. Now, following that, the young people decided to, kind of go on a vengeance spree and targeted Newmont. And so it started with a contractor vehicle which was bent down. Another truck was destroyed. Then, not long after that, they headed to our residential facility where our families, and employees live. went in there, they managed to overpower the security and, you know, looted, destroyed, vandalized our, you know, properties, both individual properties and all. So you'll be in your house, they will just enter your bedroom, enter your kitchen, everywhere with machetes and things like that, destroy things, television, microwaves, any household item, take whatever they can take away. A very, very traumatic experience for us and our families. Of course, we requested for police reinforcement. By the evening, we had that. So then we had some military as well. So right now we have over 100 security personnel stationed over there. But it's been a very unfortunate thing. First off, at the moment, we are not sure of, you know, who actually fired the gunshot. We are receiving conflicting reports as to what exactly happened, because it happened beyond the borders of our mind. So we are waiting for the police, who are investigating the issue currently, to come out with their report on that. Good news is that we understand 3 of the 4 people who were injured have responded well to treatment and they've been discharged. We're hoping that the other one will also be discharged today. But regarding our family, it's been a very traumatic experience. They literally went there, broke into people's houses, vandalized, destroyed stuff. The military now had to escort people back to their homes.
And this afternoon, calm is returning to some ECG prepaid points in Accra as the company resolves challenges making it impossible to recharge meters. But some cannot be said for customers who use the e-payment platforms. For nearly 4 days, ECG payment platforms were offline, of course, forcing many customers to join long queues and left them frustrated. But management of the Electricity Company of Ghana says it has restored its systems back to normalcy. Michael Niashali has been checking out some of the vending points.
First off, I started off from the Accra West Regional Office in Kaneshi, where I tried to assess the level of impact and again what has been the intervention from management of that particular region. This is an operational region, I should put that across. Again, we also managed to check from Dansuma and some of the vending centers there. And finally, we ended up here at Roman Ridge District Office here, under the Accra East Regional Operational Region of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Challenge I've been told, even though they don't speak to us on record yet, what I've managed to gather so far is that they mainly had challenges with vending. And vending would include some of the different types of meters that they have. So some people have the Nuri meter here. So if you have the Nuri meter, it would have been difficult to recharge, and this is mainly for prepaid users. Some other users here, we have the MMS compliant meters as well, had some challenges, but we are told that the eCash platform, for those who were buying their prepaid or recharging their meters over the eCash platform, they had no challenges. But as it stands now, Wednesday, November 16, I am told that a majority of these issues have been resolved, except for challenges retrieving the history of those who are using prepaid meters, or in technical terms, what do you call the CMS platform. So this as far as we know, but the queues that we reported right from Kumasi and the Ashanti region to the Greater Accra region, I can tell you on record that right now they have reduced to clearly almost nobody here who is frustrated and been waiting for days to buy or to recharge their meters.
And we have firm assurance from the ECG that they're working to resolve the situation. Well, I'm sure that you've encountered them. They're smooth talkers, always prepared to convince you that a small bottle of herbs can cure over 1,000 ailments. They always have people on standby to give glowing testimonies. The Food and Drugs Authority has tried to muster public opinion against them, but the existence of several drug hawkers in every bus station proves that they are not going away anytime soon. My colleague Elikem Akunkpet set out to understand the operation of these medicine hawkers and the threats they could actually be posing to our everyday lives.
If you frequent bars, terminals or marketplaces, you may have met 3 types of medicine hawkers. There's the enthusiastic hawker who is eager to show you how the medicine works. There's also the hawker who uses the Bible to convince you. And oh, the foreigner who cannot communicate in English or any other Ghanaian language but for what he sells.
All the thing way the way you go, because he be heba, inshallah, all without him what get. The beheba I come to from Niger, my country in Niger, inshallah. Register like how?
They may seem very different, but what they have in common is the sale of medicines they claim can cure a host of ailments. That's not all.
We will be my blessed day. Men go find a friend of Yagra, Afudezia Bella. 1 year, 2 years, we want to be where the 7 months. Vitality figure, now wait in a year.
And there's more.
Ask my pressure. Dear Ubwa, I like the phone, don't venture grow.
Many medicine hawkers run their businesses in Ghanaian markets and bars terminals. The advantage is ready accessibility to the passerby or passenger.
You insult God. You say you love him, but you are lying. If you take this drug, you will never fall sick. My father grew to 97 years.
You may be thinking, do people believe all they are saying? Do they patronize their services?
I have sold these drugs for more than 5 years. People really buy from me. They also send to their relatives abroad. I get random calls from Netherlands asking me to send more.
The products and services these medicine hawkers render to the public are increasingly becoming a worry to health professionals.
The main goal of medicine, again, is not just to make sure you are feeling better, is to make sure you are feeling better with less side effects. You see, so we go beyond treating the cuckoo or treating the UTI. We have to make sure whatever you are taking is going to be in a specific dose and dosage that is safe for you to take, you know. So there is accountability in medicine. You have the right to ask if something is coming up. So we want to first enhance accountability to what they are doing there. And the way we can start mechanizing is that first, the truth is the storage is a problem because every drug has a particular condition it's being stored. And that is very important because it affects what we call the bioavailability of the drug, how the drug will work.
A bread seller confirms that she was severely dehydrated after consuming a particular drug. But instead of recognizing the harm it could have caused, she rather testified of the potency of the drug.
I suffered severe constipation. I used to spend several minutes at the loo, but when I took this drug, I felt relieved to the point of severe diarrhea and dehydration. My son rushed me to the hospital, and I was told that I should have taken just 1 pill and not 3. The drug has made me very strong.
If the consequences are this dire, then what's FDA doing about it?
When it comes to the hawking of medicines here in Ghana, I am not aware of any institution that provides any form of license or approval for the sale of medicines in transport terminals by hawking. When people then decide to justify their trade by saying that it has been approved by Center for Plant Medicine and Research, what I want to say is that it still does does not constitute a market authorization. One sure means by which you know that it has not been approved by FDA is at least the information on the package. There are times that you find them in different languages. If it's not in English or there is no parallel translation with it in the English language, that's a sure sign that it has not been approved by the FDA. Again, you look at the expiration date, the date of manufacture, and then the expiration date. And then also the batch number, because there are times where these products may have to be recalled or you may have to make some complaints about it or something. And it's the batch number that will give the lead when you have to do any such reporting.
It's obvious. The greatest responsibility lies on you. Yes, you the individual, to take up the watchdog role and ensure what you consume is wholesome. Eli Kim Aku Kunkpe. Joy News, Accra.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I'm Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. Updates there for you. Lots of stories to read. We'll be back again tomorrow. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Thanks for watching.